So before spring break, I told you guys that I was going to begin talking to you about leadership. And we were going to do a leadership seminar, and we were going to do some activities, and I was going to try to teach you some things. But there is one thing that I don't want you to leave this semester without hearing or knowing. And some of you, if you just took CM 120 not too long ago, you may have heard this already. But what I want to do is I want to kind of sandwich your CM career with this. Give it to you when you're in CM 120, and then give it to you in CM 481 at the end of your career as you're going out into your future career. And I want to do that because I really feel like it's something you can use throughout your college career here, and then also something that you absolutely need when you are out in the industry. And there's 12 points that I want to go through with you about leadership. And it is one of the most important things that I think you're going to learn in your college career, because all superintendents are going to be leaders. You're all going to be leaders. And so I just want to give you some kind of basis for what you're going to do as leaders. And so if you'll bear with me, I'm going to go through these points probably 3 at a time here or so, just to keep these videos shorter. But I call this leadership redefined. And the reason I call it leadership redefined is because I think we've been taught a lot of things about leadership. And you've probably heard other lectures about leadership. You've probably heard other videos talking about it. You've probably heard a lot of things about leadership. But I want to flip some of those things on their head. I want to change your perspective on some of those things. And I want you to kind of forget everything that you think you have learned about leadership so far. Usually around this time I ask, does anybody in here want to be a leader? And, everybody raises their hands. But even if you didn't raise your hand, even if you didn't raise your hand at home, I want to tell you that you're going to be a leader. You're going to have to learn how to lead. The reason you're in this program is to learn how to be a leader, whether that be as a project manager, a superintendent, or whatever career field you end up going into. You're going to be a leader. That's why you're in college. And there's this really old story, this fable that I like to tell. And it's about a forest. Kind of like that forest that I was in my last video. You remember that forest? And there was this forest. And this forest was looking for a leader. And it went around all the different trees. And it said, what tree would be a good leader for this forest? And it saw this apple tree. And this apple tree produced tons and tons of fruit, which is the best apple tree in the world. And it produced tons of fruit that fed all of the animals on the forest floor. And it was a great tree. And they went to this tree and they said, hey, would you be our leader? We think you look like a great leader. You produce lots and lots of fruit. And the apple tree said, I can't be your leader. Don't you see? I have all this stuff to do. I have all this fruit to make. If I didn't make all this fruit, what would the animals eat? The animals would suffer. And so the apple tree decided not to be the leader. And so the forest kept looking, and the forest saw this peach tree. And this peach tree produced the most amazing peaches. So good. And this peach tree was one of the best trees in the forest. Sorry, I got distracted. You probably can't hear it, but there's like kids all over the place. I got too many of them, but don't tell them that. So this peach tree, great tree, and produced lots and lots of fruit, fed all the animals. When they went to this peach tree and they said, "Peach tree, will you be our leader? Will you be the leader of the forest?" And the peach tree said, "Don't you see? I'm really busy here making lots and lots of fruit, and I don't have time to be your leader." And so they kept looking and looking and looking, and finally they saw this thorn bush, and this thorn bush was really big. And so they said, "Thorn bush, you look successful. You're really big. Will you be our leader?" And the thorn bush said, "I don't have anything else better to do, so of course I'll be your leader. Of course I'll be your leader." And the thorn bush became the leader. And after a little while, thorn bush was doing what it was doing, and it would start to crawl around things and crawl up things. And it just started to strangle out all the other plants and all the other trees in the forest. And it began to kill the forest. And before you knew it, that apple tree and that peach tree began to not produce fruit anymore. They began to not be able to make the fruit in order to drop their fruit for all of the animals that were out there. And so this forest began to suffer, and it began to die because of the leader. And that is one of the most important things that you need to ask yourself. Are you willing to lead? Are you willing to lead? Because if you're not willing to lead, somebody else is going to do it. And it might be the thorn bush. The same thing happens in industry, where a thorn bush, or we might call that a micromanager, starts to strangle everyone else in the company, starts to put their hands and their claws around everything else that everybody else is doing, and starts to make it so that they stop producing. And that's not a good leader. The good leaders produce lots and lots of fruit. And today I want to ask you, are you willing to lead? You got to ask yourself that. Are you willing to lead? Because if you're not willing to lead, somebody else is going to. And it may not be the person that you want to lead. It may not be the peach tree. It may be the thorn bush. As we are going into these 12 points of leadership, I want you to remember that question. Are you willing to lead? Now, I'm going to stop the video here, and I'm going to go into the first point in the next video.